Today on an all-new Dr. Phil, losing loved ones to COVID-19.
How many people did you have on life support at one time?
My brother, my parents, and my husband. The world did cave in around me.
It's okay to feel. It's okay to cry.
Families coping with grief.
I wish I was able to give my dad one more hug.
You're wearing his jacket right now, aren't you?
Yeah, it still smells like him.
As you know, I'm not broadcasting from my studio anymore because in the wake of COVID-19, everything, and I mean everything, has completely changed. Not only are we all grieving the loss of our regular lives, but tragically, many are grieving the loss of loved ones as the death toll continues to rise. Not to mention, many are mourning the fact that they could not even give their family member a proper goodbye. Joining us on Zoom is Kelly from Columbus, Ohio. She says COVID-19 destroyed her family. It took the lives of Kelly's brother, her mother, and her father. And if that's not enough of a nightmare, her husband is currently in ICU fighting for his life. Kelly, it's so good to meet you, and let me say before we even start, I am so very sorry for your losses, not just your loss, but your multiple losses and the battle that you're in now for your husband. Tell me how you're doing.
Dr. Phil, first, let me thank you for having me on the show. It is a privilege to speak to you. I would say we are comfortably numb. We have a myriad of emotions, and when we are able to tap into some of them, they're volcanic. This is trauma for my family. We have been so broken by this.
Your mother was in the hospital and she's 75, and you were moving her to a rehab facility on the 7th, right? And then your brother woke up sick, and by the 11th, he was in the ER on life support, correct?
Correct.
And then your father started getting symptoms, and 3 days later, he was released, right?
Sicker than he went in, correct.
Sicker than he went in, but 4 hours later, he was leaving the house in an ambulance, and then on the 17th, he was on life support.
Correct, Dr. Phil.
Wow, I cannot, it must just felt like it was just pouring on you guys. So then your mom started showing signs on the 18th, and on the 19th, she was on life support.
That is correct.
So how many people did you have on life support at one time?
4. My brother, both of my parents, and my husband.
Oh my gosh. Kelly, I am so sorry. I can't even imagine what you must have been dealing with. What did you say to yourself when all of this was happening? It had to feel like the world was just caving in around you.
The world did cave in around me. My family was my world. We weren't able to give proper goodbyes. To see how terrified my parents were and my husband was when they first went into the hospital, and then to not be able to visit them or to sit beside them and to tell them that everything is going to be okay or that we will be okay, certainly has added to our ability to even just wrap heads around what has happened. I don't think that this has really hit us. It's real yet. I think that we are in a state of shock. We've had to shelf any memorial service or funeral for my brother and both of my parents until a later date when my husband can attend. So we have not been able to see any of our family or our friends who love us the most, who want to help us. And there's really just nothing that can be done right now because we're in this holding pattern.
Well, I understand, and you're certainly entitled to be overwhelmed, and I'm trying to wrap my head around what you've been through, because on the 9th, your brother wakes up sick and goes to the doctor, and they tell him, oh, you just have a double ear infection and sinus. And then on the 11th, he goes into the ER, and then so 8 days later, after being on life support, he passes away, and then 2 days later, your parents die within 90 minutes of each other. And your parents had been married for 57 years, right?
That is correct.
And so they die within 48 hours of your brother passing away.
They did. They did everything together. They were a true love story. I knew that had they been able to survive the virus, I didn't know how I would be able to tell them that we lost my only sibling, my brother. And so I prayed that night to my God and to my brother, and I asked them if he was going to take them together, because they would never have been able to live knowing that they lost my brother. And I think that my brother knew, God knew, that they weren't going to have any quality of life after this virus. And that was the first miracle that my brother was able, his last gift to me was my parents, to go with them.
I understand what you're saying. Well, let me let you take just a little break here. Kelly says that her grief is overwhelming, and of course, she doesn't know how to help her 3 daughters. She has a set of twins at 25 and a 27-year-old, and she says she doesn't know how to deal with her own grief, let alone parent them and model for them how to deal with their own grief. We'll talk about that right after the break. The coronavirus pandemic is ripping apart families around the world who are devastated by the death of their loved ones. And to make it all the more tragic, the grieving process is being turned upside down as social distancing rules do not allow families to even congregate and support each other or to do final proper goodbyes with those that they're losing. Now, Kelly from Columbus, Ohio, is joining me on Zoom again because we can't be together right now. She suffered the tragic loss of not just one, but 3 family members within 48 hours of each other. Both of her parents, who had been married for 57 years. They had been together, they had known each other since childhood. And then her brother. And they all died from COVID-19. And now, to top it all off, her husband is on life support fighting for his very life. Kelly, tell me this, when your parents were in their decline, were you able to talk to them, see them through a window, talk to them on a telephone, let them hear your voice? Was there any contact at all?
There was a compassion visit that was granted to my oldest daughter and I from the hospital staff, who has shown such love and support to us as well as to my family. They allowed us an opportunity to visit my parents and my husband, to let them know they were all heavily sedated and on paralytics. We were able to gown up, mask up, let them know that we were there and visit with them. Was not able to see my brother because he was 3 hours away, and I didn't want to leave here. So when we got the call that my mom was losing her battle, they allowed us a second opportunity, which we gladly took, to gown up and visit and let her know that it was okay and that we loved her. And my dad at that same time was losing his grip. So my daughter and I were able to stay at the hospital until we knew that they were both in my brother's company.
And what did you say to your mom and dad in that last visit?
How much we loved them, how grateful we were for the life, and that we were chosen to be a family.
Have you and your daughters talked about this since it happened? I mean, you've all three had such terrific loss here with their uncle and their grandparents. What conversations have you had with your three daughters?
Loneliness. We've all listened to voicemails from all three. We can't really be together. My twins both live out of the house. So, thanks to technology, we're able to text and call and FaceTime.
I hope you're not trying to be strong for your daughters. I hope you're allowing yourself to be emotional with them and let them see that this is impacting you the way it is, and that you're not trying to hide that emotion, because I want you to feel free to show them that this is painful to you, and let them see that it's okay to feel and cry, and then in the ultimate end game they will see that you do get through this, that with God's help you do recover from this and go on and be in their lives.
We are very much present. My daughters and my son and I. I know that they're looking to me, and I'm doing my best to be a mother and to support them through this. But like you just mentioned, I'm trying to navigate this for myself as well. And it's the most difficult thing I've ever done.
This is a terrible triple loss, and you're also worrying about your husband, and it's so powerful for you to show them that it's okay to feel, it's okay to cry, it's okay to hurt, and to show that and not try to keep a stiff upper lip and hang in there for them. It's so great that you're able to give your feelings a voice and talk about this candidly with your daughters. That's such a powerful thing to show them, so they know that it's okay to emote that way. That's a big part of grieving, is to be able to give it a voice and show your emotions. And I want to talk to you about that some more. We're going to add a young woman to the conversation, but Kelly's going to stay with us. This young woman lost her father and never got to properly say goodbye. We're going to add her to this conversation next and talk to both of these ladies. We'll be right back. The coronavirus is forcing families to isolate when they would be so much more comforted if they were able to be in contact, particularly when they have lost a loved one. Now, with us on Zoom is Kelly, who suffered the unimaginable loss of her brother and both of her parents from the virus. She says the grief is overwhelming and she doesn't know how to comfort her children or move forward from her losses, all while her husband is in the hospital fighting for his life as we speak. Now, Hannah is also joining us via Zoom. She is in Chicago. Her family was also hit hard by the coronavirus. She lost her father, a 911 operator, and then she had to quarantine right away because the rest of her family was exposed. She says she's been more isolated than ever before in her entire life.
My father, Russell Majeski, worked for 911 Chicago for 20 years. At his work, 14 people have been diagnosed with corona. My dad was concerned about the conditions at work. All that was done was hand sanitizer was put on the desk. My father is an essential worker, so he continued to work. My dad showed symptoms of fatigue, lack of taste, and coughing. And in the last couple days, he had trouble breathing. My dad passed on March 29th due to complications of corona. I was not able to see my father until 10 days after he passed, and it was just me in masks and gloves, and I only got 10 minutes to say my goodbye, and I didn't get to spend the last days of my dad's life with him. We don't get to have a memorial for my father. We don't get to have a funeral. Everything that you would normally do to grieve, we don't get to do. My dad deserved to live a lot more life than he did.
Hannah, let me say, as I said to Kelly, I am so very sorry for your loss. I can't even imagine. And you said that he remained at home and then he basically passed away during the ride to the hospital. Is that right?
On Sunday the 29th, he was struggling at home, and he was struggling to breathe at home along with other of the flu symptoms, and my mom called the ambulance, and on the way to the hospital, he flatlined.
And you were only able to spend 10 minutes with his body before they cremated him, and I'm sorry that you were robbed of that time. If you knew then what you know now, and you were with your dad, what would you have said to him? What would you have wanted him to know?
I mean, if I knew that he was suffering of coronavirus, I would have been home sooner. I would have spent every second I could with him. I would want to express to him how loved he was by all his family members, and just how grateful I am and was for him. And he was the most wonderful, hardworking, dedicated father who gave my siblings and I the space to be who we were and are, and he supported us endlessly. And I would just want him to know how appreciated he was, and I wish I could have spent more time with him.
And you were living in Los Angeles at the time, correct?
I moved to LA in November, and so I came the second I heard the news on Sunday, because again, I didn't know the severity of all of this, and so I've been feeling a lot of guilt for not being here with him in his last week, and I just wish I could have been here sooner.
It's so easy to look at in hindsight and say, wow, if I'd have known, I would have, but of course there's no way to know. And Kelly, you certainly understand her pain of not being able to be there, which is the same thing you experienced. What would you say to Hannah?
Sweet Hannah, I would say that your dad knew how much he was loved. He gave you the space, the opportunity to grow and be who you were. And he will always be proud of you. And it's evident in what he was able to do for your siblings by giving you that opportunity for growth, how much he loved you. Don't ever, ever forget that, please.
Kelly, even though you were there, you didn't have much access to your parents because of the lockdown. And, Hannah, you know that there were such restrictions that had you known it was coronavirus and had you been there, as Kelly experienced, there would have been a lot of restriction on your ability to be with him.
I am blessed, and I'm grateful that that my mom was with him and he wasn't alone. And um, I guess it's hard to process. I would have, I for his sake, I would have wanted to have been there every second. And
Of course.
I thought I was protecting him by not coming home, and because I wouldn't have wanted to bring him anything. I wouldn't have wanted to bring anybody any sickness that I may have had or been exposed to, and it's just been so confusing and complicated to know what would have been the right and best thing to do.
Kelly and Hannah both want to know when they can start feeling alive again, and it's so difficult to grieve in isolation because, as Hannah says, the family members in her household are not even hugging because they're practicing social distancing, and they don't want this to gain momentum as it did in Kelly's family. So we'll talk about that right after the break.
Grieving my dad's loss has been especially difficult with the coronavirus because of the isolation. I do have concerns for my mental health. I've been mad and confused and angry. I don't know how I'm going to move forward with this. I don't even know where to begin on any of it.
I've often said the depth, breadth, and longevity of your grief are not a reflection of how much you cared about the person. But as the coronavirus keeps more families isolated, many are struggling to move forward in the grieving process because it's creating new challenges. Kelly and Hannah are both on Zoom, and neither of these women have been able to properly mourn their relatives lost to COVID-19, and that began with the inability to say goodbye in the proper way. And Hannah, you, of course, have unfinished emotional business with your father because you didn't get to be with him and you didn't get to say goodbye. And you say the lack of physical support is just awful. You feel like you wish you could be closer with others and share this together, right?
The lack of physical support is difficult. My family and I were grateful for, the cards and the text messages and phone calls that we've received from family and friends. But I want to hug somebody. I want to hug my friends and my family, and I want to get the support for them, but I also would not want to put anybody else's life at risk by exposing them to what we've been exposed to, and nobody else should have to go through this.
Right, of course. And there are 12 other people from the center where your dad worked that have coronavirus as well now, correct?
The number is now 14. So 14. His work is now it's basically an epicenter of the coronavirus. And I fear for the safety of his older coworkers, for any of his coworkers. And my dad deserves to be recognized as someone who risked his life to be a first responder during this time. He didn't stay home. He went to work because he cared. He was a 911 operator for the city of Chicago, and the best father in the world.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about some of the things that I think both you and Kelly need to do. Next, the steps Hannah and Kelly need to take to continue their grief process and get the healing process moving in the appropriate way. We'll be right back. Hannah and Kelly both lost loved ones to the coronavirus and now want to know when they will be able to start feeling alive again, when they can begin any semblance of a grieving process. The first thing that I always say to people about getting through the grieving process is there's no right way or wrong way to do it. I mean, everybody does this differently, and the first piece of advice is don't be in a hurry. Even if you weren't in the situation you're in right now, don't feel like you're on some kind of a schedule. Don't feel like that you're going to be judged or that you should judge yourself, that you have to do things by Tuesday or Thursday or a month from now, because whenever you choose to mark that time to honor those that you love, it will be the right time, and people will stop what they're doing and they will come with you to honor that person. And it's just not a betrayal of their memory to begin the healing process, because I promise you, Kelly, your brother, your parents would not want you or your 3 daughters, and Hannah, your father would not want you to spend the next year of your life in pain because of any feelings you had about what you could or couldn't have done for them. You didn't bring this on, you didn't create this situation, and you shouldn't beat yourself up over it. And you're going to go back and forth. You're going to go from shock to numbness, fear, panic, frustration, anger. All of these things are going to come up. It's just going to be so frustrating for you. But that's a natural and normal thing, and you're going to work through this, and they want you to work through this. I mean, Hannah, your dad would want you to work through this. Would you agree?
Yeah, I know that he wouldn't want me to stay mopey, and I'm going to miss him at everything that I do and every milestone in my life. There was so much I wanted to do with him, but I know that he would still want me to do all of those things and find joy in life. And I'm looking forward to hopefully being able to do that soon, and in the next life be able to tell him all about it.
And you're not going to forget him. I know that. You're wearing his jacket right now, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm wearing his work sweater. It still smells like him, and that's something I wish I could do more than anything. Is I wish I was able to give my dad one more hug. And when I went to see him for the last time, I wasn't able to touch him. It was so difficult because I didn't get a proper goodbye means. And
well, and I understand that, and that's exactly what Kelly was talking about. And I've got someone I want to add to our conversation here that has a lot to say about this, because he's had to this is his life in dealing with this, and you guys are in such a strange situation right now. And his name's Mark Flower, and he's going to talk about this in a minute and what he's seeing and how unusual what you guys are having to deal with truly is, because he runs the Flower Funeral Home in Yonkers, New York, and he's going to talk about how different this is from normal, how steep a hill you guys truly do have to climb. We're going to talk to him, add him to our conversation right after the break.
My name is Mark Flower. I'm a third-generation funeral director. I just want to give you a tour of the funeral home and show you the impact of the COVID-19 virus. As we head down toward the chapel, you'll notice we were keeping the chairs apart from one another, trying to make sure that nobody got sick. And then, of course, there's the hand sanitizer. Down here is the other chapel that we have converted into a morgue, basically. Some of the stuff you notice here on the table, some of the personal protection equipment we have, some spray, the mask, the headgear. These are some of the suits that we put on when we go to do a house removal or if we go to a nursing home. This would be put on and then thrown out as soon as we left. And then these are body bags here. Everybody gets put into a body bag, and if they're in one and they have COVID, we would put them in another one. Things have changed so much, it's crazy.
Now, Mark Flower joins us on Zoom. He is the owner and funeral director of Flower Funeral Home in Yonkers, New York. Now, he says he's been doing this for 33 years, but this virus has caused the act of grieving to completely change. So, Mark, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, you are seeing some things now, some restrictions put on people for safety reasons that you've just never seen before. In fact, you say that cemeteries aren't even letting people in the gate because of the virus, so people aren't allowed to go to the graveside. True?
That's one of the cemeteries, yes. Not every cemetery has their own rules and regulations. And this one in particular, we were there 3 times in 1 week, and every time we went, they kept changing the rules from only the pastor was allowed to maybe go to the grave to the people could go, but they had to stay in their cars. Then it went to 1 car, only 1 car was allowed in, and we were just there, what was it, Friday or Saturday, and we had a limousine and the hearse, and they let the hearse in without the limousine. And it was like, I don't even understand that mentality of not allowing someone to at least go to the grave. It just adds insult to an already difficult situation, which is losing somebody.
And there's a lot of this going on because you're so backed up at this point. You say you've had to convert one of your chapels into a refrigerator to handle the overflow of bodies. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, and the New York area is a very unique situation right now. I mean, just imagine, we're talking 500, 600, 700 people a day dying in New York City. And the funeral homes can't absorb the amount of people passing away. And it's trickled down. The crematories, they're closing their gates, opening up every other day or by appointment only. I have reservations on some crematories that are a week or 2 away. And that's as of today. So if I take in another 5 to 7 cases a day, it just adds to the problem. And in the New York area, it's getting very stressful. For me, I mean, I'm putting in 15, 20-hour days. I worked till 2 o'clock in the morning last night trying to catch up and get people buried or cremated. And it's daunting because usually in our business, it goes in spurts. You'll get busy and then it'll slow down. And with this, every time I think it's going to slow down, the phone rings another 15, 20 times. And it kills me to have to tell people I can't help them because I can't. I just have so much on my plate right now. I have to take care of the people I have now. And I'm be doing a disservice to take on more people just to take them on. And I won't do that.
And you say there's like 700 a day. What is normal?
In the New York City area?
Right.
I would have to take a guess of maybe 50 to 100.
So this is way, way out of proportion.
Oh, yeah. I mean, all the hospitals have tractor trailers, refrigerated trucks because of the amount of people that are passing away. I mean, it's I've never seen anything like it in my life.
You say that these people are not able to do the normal thing that they would do with the lost person that they loved. How are they reacting to this? What are you seeing on their faces? What are they saying when they're not able to do the traditional goodbyes that they would normally have?
It's just, you brought up the problem, which is when these people are diagnosed with the disease in a nursing home or in a hospital, the family can't come in to say their goodbyes. And then we are ourselves, I mean, I don't know if other funeral homes are doing this, but because it's so highly contagious, we stopped offering wakes because we can't take a chance of our own. There's funeral directors that have come down with this disease and handling these people. So we decided to put a stop to having wakes, even for the family. I'm doing things like taking pictures of people's ID bands and toe tags, so they have some satisfaction that I did take care of their loved one. And when we go to the cemetery, if the family can't come in, I'm taking pictures with my cell phone of the casket going to the grave and the men lowering it down, and then I'm sending it to the family so they kind of feel like they're there. I mean, I'm making this stuff up as as the rules and regulations keep changing.
Well, that's got to be a big help to the families. Mark says that there is an entire religious aspect of mourning that cannot happen because of COVID-19 contagion. We'll talk about that after the break. Society is changing the way it is experiencing grief after the unexpected tragic losses from the coronavirus. Although the experience of grief is universal, everyone's reaction to the process differs widely. Now, Kelly and Hannah are both mourning unimaginable sudden losses. Mark is having to comfort families who need his services like never before, and he was just commenting that he's kind of making it up as he goes along and taking cell phone pictures to families that aren't allowed in the cemetery. And it's apparently having an effect, because one of his clients commented in a text to Mark, I want to thank you again for your services and for the pictures that made me feel like I was present at the cemetery. This was so special and meaningful to be able to have this to hold on to that words cannot express my gratitude. I would be happy to highly recommend you to anyone who will need your services. Details like this makes all the difference in the world to a family. God bless you for taking my case and helping me get this done as soon as you did. God bless you, and may you continue to be very successful. And that was signed by Anna. So, you know, Mark, as difficult as it is to do all of this, at least you know that it's having an impact on the people that you're working with.
Yes, I mean, I'm here to help people. That's why I got into this business. I mean, you know, funerals are for the living, and they're not for the dead. We can't do anything for them, but we could celebrate that person's life, and whatever way we can makes a big difference for a family. I mean, I heard Kelly and Hannah, and my heart goes out to them. I just want to first give my condolences. I feel terrible what's happened to them. And I just want them to know that as long as you remember the one you love, you'll never lose the one you love. Just always keep them in your hearts and prayers, and always talk to them, and they will hear you. Getting back to the funeral aspect, you know, how we mourn our dead is what makes us different as human beings, and we can't do that now. We can't. You know, you mentioned about comforting and hugging, and even I think Hannah had said she just wants to get a hug. It goes against every moral fiber in your body as another human being. You want to touch them and hold them and just stroke them and caress them and help them through it. And I heard it through Hannah's voice. I mean, you could see she's crying out for some sort of comfort. And I feel terrible that she's going through this right now. And I just hope maybe she'll memorialize her father at a later time and be able to celebrate his life that he deserves. Because he seems to have done a lot.
I'm sure that will happen. And Mark, I really thank you for sharing and also for what you're doing. And again, I offer my most sincere condolences to Kelly and Hannah. And Kelly, I want you to know that our prayers are with you for your husband. We pray that he rallies through this and comes back and gets this behind him and is back with you again. You've certainly lost more than enough in this. I would also like to thank all the healthcare workers and hospital staff who have shown such strength in the face of adversity and compassion for the grieving family members, as we were hearing from Kelly saying how compassionate all the people at the hospital were for her, and I just know that makes such a difference. And as I wrap up today, I want to leave you with the images and memories of the loved ones we spoke of today who are sorely missed by their family and friends. We will see you next time.
When you find yourself alone and in the dark, and the dreams you're reaching for seem all so far away, don't let them fade. It's not too late. Spread your wings, you can fly. You can even touch the sky. got the strength, you got the faith, and there is nothing you can't do. Awake the hero inside of you.
If anybody deserved some good news in their life, it was Kelly Conkey Billups.
In late March, Kelly Billups lost both her parents and her younger brother to COVID-19. Her husband was hospitalized for weeks. He had it too, but now he has beaten the virus.
With the ring of the bell, Don Billups is done with this part of his recovery after having COVID-19.
He's glad to be going home. Been a long ride.
He spent weeks in the hospital in the fight of his life against the coronavirus. He had been on a ventilator for nearly 30 days.
Been a roller coaster ride. With the tragedy we had.
This day means everything to us, and the reason I've been able to continue to get out of bed every day.
Memories can kill ya, but I didn't hear ya. I thought that I could fly, but woke up on the asphalt. I swear there was the last time. I've always been naive. Call it